So it's January 8th, 2018, inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. It's Georgia versus Alabama for the national championship game. And Jalen Hurts, the sophomore quarterback who led Alabama all season, has just been benched at halftime in favor of a freshman quarterback named Tua. At this moment, Alabama is down 13-0. On the sideline, you could see Hurts clapping for his teammate, supporting him, but deep down, you can imagine how much this moment is devastating for him. The quarterback who led his team all season, all the way here to the national championship game, is now on the sidelines. Look at this moment. This is Jalen's raw emotion immediately after the game.
Here with Jalen Hurts. Jalen, you've just been shaking your head. You've had that smile on your face. Your reaction when you found out Tua was going to start the second half, honestly.
He was going to step in and do his thing. You know, we have a lot of guys in the QB room that play really well.
Jalen Hurts has a problem throwing the damn football. Tua, this kid, Tua Tagovailoa, hey, listen, he's better.
I don't think he's an elite college football quarterback. He's not, the Alabama defense is usually better than Jalen Hurts.
But Hurts didn't let his story end on the sideline. Instead, he transferred to Oklahoma as a senior, dramatically improving his draft stock, proving he could lead a team at the highest level. And fast forward to the NFL draft, and still Jalen Hurts wasn't considered the top quarterback available. Joe Burrow, Tua, Justin Herbert, and Jordan Love were all drafted ahead of him.
Well, I think it's twofold. One, I don't think Jalen Hurts is their quarterback for the future. It's a franchise quarterback that you're going to stick with and say, I'm going to go win a Super Bowl.
I don't think Jalen Hurts is accurate enough as a passer, and maybe they see things in practice and kind of working with him that I have not seen. But there's a reason that Tua Tagovailoa became the guy in Alabama, and then Hurts wound up moving on to Oklahoma. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to lead Philadelphia or any NFL organization to a Super Bowl.
But today, none of those quarterbacks have touched the Lombardi Trophy. Hurts, however, made 2 Super Bowl appearances in his early NFL career, and on his second try, he delivered. He was named Super Bowl MVP. So the question is, how did Jalen Hurts go from being benched in college to becoming one of the NFL best quarterback? This is the rise of Jalen Hurts. But to truly understand, we need to go back even further. Jalen's father, Adrian Hurts, has coached football at China High School in the Houston area since 2006.
You could say that they're the first family of football in the Channelview area. Adrian Hurts, the Channelview High School head coach, has got Channelview in his blood.
I graduated from Channelview High School, and I'm proud to say that, both of my sons graduated, from Channelview also.
When Hurts was just 7 or 8 years old, according to his dad, he will outlast some varsity players during running drills.
He was probably a toddler, maybe quite not 2 yet. I can remember him, we were at a beach in Corpus Christi walking around with a little football. And then we took a trip to San Antonio. He must have been maybe in the third grade. He had a shirt on that said, born to play football. And it was a football.
Wow.
So I said, this is your destiny. This is where it's bigger than football. This is your calling. You're gonna impact so many people. You just don't even realize.
And here's something most people don't know. When it was time to select a high school, Jalen didn't choose the top tier high school where all the elite players went.
The rival school is North Shore. And so they get a lot of our kids. But unfortunately, a lot of those kids want to say they go to North Shore, but they never get to play. But here in a smaller school, you'll have the opportunity to play. So he decided to come play for his dad. And I'll never forget, we finally beat North Shore. We had never beat them before. Jalen threw I don't know how many yard bomb to one of his receivers. It had 5.9 seconds on the clock.
Wow.
And when I tell you that was the most exciting game I had ever been to, I saw people leaving the stands. This game is over. And I'm calling, it's not over, we won.
By his senior year, Hurts had thrown for over 2,300 passing yards and rushed for another 1,300 yards and accounted for 51 touchdowns in just 11 games. And one incredible detail stood out. In high school, Jalen could squat over 500 pounds. Look at this footage. Here's Jalen squatting over 500 pounds. staff later called him one of the strongest players they've ever recruited. In fact, Jalen was the #1 dual-threat quarterback in the 2016 recruiting class. But recruiters still doubted him, claiming he wasn't polished enough to be ranked among the top quarterbacks coming out of high school. Alabama, however, believed differently. After just one visit, Jalen committed immediately. Jalen was ready for the next challenge, college football at the powerhouse Alabama. So once he got to Alabama, this is what his offensive coordinator and teammates have said about him. He had a high level of confidence for a 17-year-old freshman. Hurts was acting like the starting quarterback well before the decision was officially made, and it rubbed some other quarterbacks on the team the wrong way. Basically said, I'm gonna make the other quarterbacks all transfer. End of that 2016 season, they all did transfer. Jalen made history immediately by becoming the first true freshman quarterback to start for legendary coach Nick Saban. He won the SEC Player of the Year and led Alabama to the national championship game as a true freshman. Interestingly, the departure of the quarterbacks Blake Barnett, David Cornell, and Cooper Bateman and the graduation of another quarterback created a void that led Alabama to recruit Tua and Mac Jones. Jalen's first 2 seasons were historic, compiling a remarkable record of 26-2, but his career took an unexpected turn. In the 2018 championship game, Alabama won, but Hurts lost his starting position, igniting a massive media coverage.
Hurts looking that way over the head of Ridley. And here it is, Tua Tagovailoa, a true freshman from Hawaii, gets the second half start.
Look at how intensely the media scrutinized him after the benching.
What do you think Saban should do from here?
I think Saban should bench him, make him the second string quarterback. That's what I think he should do. Let me be very, very clear. Jalen Hurts is not impressive. I'm just gonna call it what it is. Somebody gotta do it. Jalen Hurts and you all caught up in your feelings. Yo, I was preparing this guy. You know, I own Tom Rinaldi, the great Tom Rinaldi.
Best.
Sat down with Nick Saban, and Nick Saban said this was that change at halftime was in the works for weeks. Why? Because they knew Hurts was a problem.
Tua can do things that Jalen Hurts cannot do, and that is throw the football down the field. You recruit all these 5-star guys, you don't use them with Jalen Hurts. It isn't Jalen Hurts. 26-2 is great, and he's a great runner. He cannot throw the ball down the field and make you pay.
During spring football, Hurts stayed to fight for his job, but the coaches remained vague about his role. His frustration became public, and the media quickly seized on it for clicks and soundbites.
Well, I think it's definitely a situation that I've been in before as far as competition, and I think I'll take the same approach in doing what I did coming into my freshman year.
And that is
just locked in on what I need to do. Definitely not looking over my shoulder. I'm not worried about anybody else. I'm just worried about me, Jalen Hurts, being the best player that I can be, being the best quarterback that I can be.
What was the summer like for you, the offseason?
I think it's been a lot. There's been a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation about things that have gone on this summer. And the funny part for me is it's just a lot of people that have made decisions for me. And it's actually good to see y'all guys. Kind of feel like they've been hiding from y'all. But there's been a lot going on, a lot of things being said. Everybody has something to say. Everybody has an opinion. But the funniest thing about all of it is I've never said a thing. I kept my mouth closed, didn't say anything to anyone. And in regards of people believing the things that are said, it's hard to believe something from somebody that the number one source didn't say anything.
The quarterback controversy became so heated that even Nick Saban famously snapped at a reporter and became viral by saying, "Quit asking." In the season, Jalen remained the backup quarterback until the SEC championship game, where he finally found redemption. When Tua went down injured, Jalen stepped onto the field, back in the very same stadium where he had previously been benched, leading Alabama to victory. However, Alabama later lost to Clemson in the national championship game. So Jalen ended up graduating early from Alabama, making him eligible to enter the transfer portal, where he was highly sought after by top programs like Maryland, Miami, and UCLA. But he chose Oklahoma, specifically for Lincoln Riley. the coach famous for turning quarterbacks into stars. After departing Alabama, Jalen made headlines by sharing his experience in the powerful article for the Players Tribune. At Oklahoma, Jalen elevated his game dramatically. He threw for over 3,800 passing yards and rushed for 1,300 yards and accounted for 53 touchdowns in just 14 games. He even outperformed previous Heisman winner Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray in key statistical categories. In his first game at Oklahoma, Hurts exploded for over 508 total yards. Despite his dominance, NFL scouts still doubted his mechanics and suggested he might need to switch positions or become a gadget player. So even after his dominant season at Oklahoma, Jalen still faced doubt as he entered the NFL draft. Going into the draft, Jalen was harshly disrespected.
Oklahoma, he could end up being a 4th or 5th round pick. Not early, but I think day 3 is where somebody brings him into the fold. And hey, let's face it, you're going to see what happens. Nobody's going to define what kind of quarterback Jalen Hurts is going to be. Is he going to be a 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round pick? I don't think so.
Statistically, his numbers surpass most of those quarterbacks picked ahead of them.
This is just a weird pick for a team that's lacking offensive help at the wide receiver position. They still could use another DB or two. Just an interesting situation to draft a quarterback who at best I think is a developmental project, putting behind Carson Wentz. Interesting pick here for the Philadelphia Eagles.
And when the Philadelphia Eagles selected Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round, the pick stunned everyone, including their own fan base. At the time, the Eagles had Carson Wentz, a quarterback with strong media support and a massive contract. After being drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts quickly found himself in another quarterback controversy, this time at the NFL level.
Levels to this. Carson Wentz, when healthy, has absolutely nothing to worry about in terms of Jalen Hurts being able to throw the football. But Carson Wentz has nothing to worry about other than Carson Wentz's health.
But during the season, Carson Wentz struggled, and by week 14, the pressure forced Eagles coach Doug Peterson to give Jalen a chance. Jalen immediately shined by defeating the Saints in his first start, but doubters continued to question his legitimacy as the starting quarterback. During that offseason, the Eagles ultimately traded Carson Wentz to the Colts and fully committed to Jalen.
And you know that. That's not Jalen Hurts thus far. 1-3 as a starter, completed 52% of his passes, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I think that we have to remember that what really resonates with us is the fact that Carson Wentz was so awful that Jalen Hurts was a breath of fresh air. It wasn't that Jalen Hurts was so terrific, so lights out. It's that Carson Wentz was so awful. And that's really what it was.
Before Hurts solidified himself as an NFL star, Jalen Hurts' journey took another surprising twist. The Eagles drafted his former Alabama teammate Devontae Smith in the 2021 draft and also acquired receiver A.J. Brown a year later. Every decision made at this point was clear. Philadelphia was betting heavily on Jalen Hurts. Going into the 2022 NFL season, Jalen knew exactly what was at stake. The Eagles had fully committed, trading for a superstar receiver A.J. Brown, upgrading the offense, and structuring everything around Jalen's strength. But even then, mainstream media personalities openly questioned if Jalen Hurts was truly a franchise quarterback. By the midpoint of the 2022 NFL season, look at this. Jalen Hurts wasn't just playing well, he was leading the MVP conversation with over 3,700 passing yards, 760 rushing yards. Jalen led the Philadelphia Eagles to a dominant 14-3 regular season record. They even secured the top playoff seed in their conference. But despite these achievements, doubters remained. Many analysts labeled the Eagles pretenders and questioned the quality of the competition that they faced all season. Instead, he continued silencing his critics through his performance by winning games. The stage was set for Jalen's biggest test yet. Super Bowl 57. Against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, Jalen delivered a performance that answered every question, passing for over 300 yards and rushing for over 70 yards, with a total of 4 touchdowns, including 3 rushing touchdowns that set a new Super Bowl record. He certainly proved he belonged on the biggest stage. But football is a game of inches, and one costly mistake, a critical fumble, allowed the Kansas City Chiefs to narrowly escape with a 38-35 win. As the confetti was falling down for Kansas City Chiefs, Jalen Hurts was captured leaving the field. The image that became his phone wallpaper, a constant reminder of what was lost. And after that heartbreak loss, Jalen didn't dwell on the defeat. He focused entirely on redemption. And 2 years later, he had his chance. Jalen once again faced Patrick Mahomes, this time at Caesars Superdome in New Orleans for the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 59. This was the rematch everyone had anticipated. Hurts versus Mahomes, round 2. This time Hurts arrived fully prepared to finish the job. From the opening whistle, he took control of the game for throwing for 276 yards and rushing for another 55 yards, and totaling 4 touchdowns and 3 passing and 1 rushing. It's like he flipped his performance from the first Super Bowl to the second. He meticulously picked apart the Chiefs defense and leaving absolutely nothing to chance. By halftime, the Eagles held a solid lead. This time, there will be no Patrick Mahomes comeback. The Eagles secured a convincing 40-22 victory. So when the confetti fell this time, it was the Eagles' green confetti that was falling. Jalen Hurts had finally achieved the ultimate success.
Jalen Hurts, what he proved last night, he's unbreakable. He's unbreakable. And he proved that this and this for an athlete will always matter more than anything else. And you have to give Jalen Hurts credit. This is a young man that was benched in the national championship game. Benched by the greatest college football coach of all time. Didn't break him. Had to go back in a year later. Transfers. And listen, I owe publicly Jalen Hurts an apology. I was probably one this year who's been the hardest on him.
He was a Super Bowl champion and named Super Bowl MVP. This victory represents more than just a trophy. It was a vindication after years of intense scrutiny and criticism and adversity. Just 7 years earlier, this was the same quarterback benched at halftime in the college championship game, putting his NFL future in limbo. Mainstream media doubted whether he was even capable of starting at the professional level, but now he's an NFL champion, a Super Bowl MVP, and perhaps the greatest victory from Jalen's story isn't just winning a Super Bowl. It's proven everyone, including himself, that setbacks are simply set up for a comeback.
Man, I think about all the hard work, all the effort put in, just to have this moment and have that moment. And honestly, you don't really reflect on those things until you spend time with your teammates and being in that locker room with the guys, knowing that 364 days of the year, I always see it as a pursuit of working just for one moment. And that's that moment of hosting that trophy and spending that time with your teammates and just enjoying that moment. So it was fun.